night, the city of Lagos went agog as all routes.
Be the first to know. From the north, south, east, west, and around Africa, we break the news.
One Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News.
Welcome to Core TV News.
24-hour news station.
Well, it's no longer news that the sovereignty of Nigeria has been threatened in some parts of the northeast region of the country. Since 2009, Nigeria has been battling with that sect called the Boko Haram. Now, it took a slightly different dimension recently with the declaration of an Islamic caliphate in Gwoza. Now, earlier in the week, on Monday in particular, its bid to recapture places like Bama and Baza, something happened in the ongoing fight against terrorism in Nigeria. And of course, the name at the center was Lieutenant Colonel Adeboye Obasanjo, an army engineer who also happens to be a son of a former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, who was shot on Monday in Baza, a suburb of Michika local government in Adamawa, where he was leading a platoon against the Boko Haram. Now, of course, details that we have now is that Bama and Baza has been recaptured by the Nigerian army, but there are still ongoing efforts to recapture Michika, Gulag, and Mubi, amongst others. On the show this Saturday, we're looking at Boko Haram, the Adebayo Obasanjo example. I'm joined now by a public affairs analyst as well as a legal practitioner, Barrister Tunde Kolawole. Good morning.
Thanks for having me, Nifemi.
You're quite typically traditional today.
It's always a delight exchanging ideas with you.
You know, some are of the opinion that Adeboye Obasanjo is a soldier before being a son of a former president. Now, why is this all this cloud of, you know, euphoria around him, given the fact that several other hundreds, if not thousands, of Nigerian soldiers, unknown soldiers, have died in the course? What's your own sincere reaction to that?
Yeah, let me say first and foremost that I want to praise Adeboye and also praise his father for allowing the son to enlist in the Nigerian army. If you look at some of these army generals or bigwigs and all that, somebody like Babangida and all that, I'm not too sure he has his son in the army. But you see, we Yorubas have a saying that if there is a job that the father is doing, which is not proud to let the son do or to let the daughter do, then there must be something wrong with that job. For that reason, why we want to commend Adeboye Obasanjo for venturing into the terrain in which his father distinguished himself as a good soldier and then as a statesman. The second one I want to say is that one is surprised that his stray bullet, on a lighter mode, one is surprised that his stray bullet can catch somebody like Adeboye Obasanjo. The news out there, or the belief out there, is that his father has some juju or some supernatural pains with which he used to protect himself when he himself was leading contingents of the Nigerian army. And it was the same juju that protected the Yapo Obasanjo when he was attacked by contract killers who wanted to snort life out of him, under the belief that he's likely to be used as a governorship candidate in Ogun State. So we begin to wonder why the elderly Obasanjo has not extended the same juju he used to protect himself and also used to protect Yabo Obasanjo when he was attacked by assassins. But like I said, that is on a lighter mode. Talking about the euphoria around Adeboye Obasanjo, it should be expected. Why do I say it should be expected? You will recollect that when the British Army went to Afghanistan, they also had a prince, one of the princes of the royal family in England, who was also serving in the British Army in Afghanistan. And you will remember a lot of secrecy was built around him, a lot of protection had to build. He is an airport pilot, and so that to protect his identity and not to make him vulnerable to the insurgency army in Afghanistan and all sorts of preparation, all sorts of special guides and all that to protect. And any time he made an adventure in that war effort in Afghanistan, there's also the British media to really amplify this thing. And you also remember all the Bush brothers and all that, because it's usually compulsory for young people in America to serve in the American army and all that. Special protections had to be put in place for all the Bush's brothers when they enlisted and then were serving in the American army. To such an extent that one of them, in fact, was not allowed to venture into the battlefield. He had to serve in some naval dockyard in there and all that. So it's not uncommon that when children or people who are highly placed, who are distinguished, who are generals are serving the army or are serving some places that are not the normal wrong of things, so to say. There will always be some issues around them. And the reasons is very obvious to you media men. This should not surprise you. Say, when a man buys a dog, it becomes news. But when the dog bites a man, it's no issues at all. So the background in which Adeboye is coming from is pedigree. And you and I also know that the medium is the message. The personality that go with Obasanjo and others, not you will find. I also have some of my own relations who are serving in this, who are on the battlefield fighting the Boko Haram and other. But if they make news or if something untoward happen to them and other, my own children who are serving are never likely to get such attention. Unlike an Obasanjo, simply because of their parental background. So it is not unusual. I just think it is you media may who always build some hype around these people for publicity, and maybe principally because you want to sell your medium to the general public.
Some have highlighted leadership by example. For instance, the former president has shown calls from friends and families to take him overseas for treatment. So he has insisted that he will remain in Nigeria and being treated in Yola. Is that some kind of patriotic gesture on the part of the former president?
Yeah, it's a good example. It's a good example. It's a patriotic gesture. If we are afraid of for our own skin, if we are afraid that our own relations, our own bloods are being affected, then we must always provide special treatment for them, special opportunities and all that. Then we won't be alive to our responsibilities as a leadership. Leadership is all about sacrifice. It's all about showing good examples. So I think General Obasanjo is showing very, very good example, not just in allowing his own children or one of his own children to serve in the army, but also insisting that he should be subjected to the ordinary medical opportunities that we do have in this part of the... He has all the resources to fly the man abroad to give him whatever, the best treatment that could ever happen. But he has chosen not to do. I think that is a very good behavior also to say on his own part. But let me also say this. This is not the first time Obasanjo is going to be showing some good gestures. I must condemn him for that. Look at what happened between himself and Iyabo Obasanjo. I don't know whether you read that explosive exchange, especially the letter that Iyabo Obasanjo published in the paper. When Iyabo Obasanjo got admission, I think for his postgraduate studies in an American university and some of his other brothers and another, the man said, look, I will pay only your tuition fee. Your feeding and boarding and accommodations and all that, you will have to work for it and then be able to meet those challenges. It's not as if the old man doesn't have the resources to relay power, but I suspect that he doesn't want to pamper his children. He believes in the dignity of labor. He wants the children to also know what it feels to be hardworking, what is fit to fend for them, because here was a man who, when you look at his pedigree, probably will never have gone to school. At very tender age, at a teenage, when he should be even playing among other toddlers and other, his parents had farmed him out to a bricklayer where he was learning bricklaying. It was when he was doing the bricklaying, some missionaries or preachers were going and say, how would this kind of underage person be learning bricklaying? Because the father couldn't take from him. And then the Christian missionaries and others said, look, this is very, very unfair. they picked him up, and I think they ruined him in the school. And it was from there he began to find this. What I'm saying out of this is that the man, given his own experience and know that he doesn't want to pamper his children. He will want them to be given the kind of opportunity, the ordinary opportunity that ordinary persons have had. Also, when you look at the exchange between Yabo Obasanjo and his father and mother, you could see that the ramblings of Yabo Obasanjo is all about saying, here we have a father who was a president, here we have a father who has been a former head of state. Yabo Obasanjo would rather want to see his father, including his elder brother, the medical doctor, giving blogs to them and giving them opportunity, which he never gave to them. Because of that, Yabo Obasanjo, from that letter, when you read in between the lines of that letter, she became so bitter. And also the house his father gave him to just stay. When he was a senator, he appropriated it and then gave it out, leased out the house to somebody else. When he is not the only daughter, or when he's not the only child. And when the man had not given him the property as a gift. So what I'm drawing out of this is that, I think it's a character trait of Obasanjo to really not to pamper his children, to really let them fend for themselves, to really be streetwise, so that they could be better citizens and better children.
I want us to place the attention and care that Adeboye Obasanjo is receiving now, being the signature of all eyes. As a matter of fact, the former Vice President, Abubakar Atiku, already visited. The acting governor of Adamawa, Asid Fintiri, visited. Now, let's place it side by side with the attention given to the unknown soldier, because as it is now, the military does not usually confirm injuries of individual soldiers or officers. Now, in the middle of all the crises where wives of soldiers are saying that we need more welfare for our husbands, we need them to be more equipped, what should be the disposition of the Nigerian government to these unknown soldiers fighting for the fatherland?
Yeah, I think what we should have is a standard welfare program for all the soldiers, a standard welfare program, a protection for all the soldiers, a standard and highly uniform procedures for treating the average Nigerian soldier, whether they be general or whether they just be an ordinary recruit in the army, whether they be son of Obasanjo, whether they be son of a poor lawyer like myself. If we have a uniform treatment, like in terms of kitting, a general should not wear a protective armor, which is different from what an ordinary soldier will wear, because by and large, they all have the same life, which both of them are, which ought to be protected by the Nigerian state. So if we have a uniform standard for the treatment in terms of the kit that they wear, in terms of the weapon that they carry, in terms of the treatment that they will get when they get injured or even killed in the battlefield, I don't think we will have any problems managing this guy. Because when you look at the average American soldier, for example, they tell you to kit an average American soldier, this is how much dollars that is usually expended. They never tell you that to kit an American general or to kit an American or a private soldier, this is how much it costs. So that is the perspective I think we should give to this some of this. For the wife of some of these soldiers who are making this kind of calls, I want to appeal to them to please disembark from such a thing, because for me, it demoralizes. It's also a disincentive in the sense that when this crisis all began, I have tried to make some personal inquiries as regards the kind of arms and ammunition, the kind of protection that the average Nigerian soldiers get. And I haven't seen any disparity. I haven't seen any special treatment being given to Soja A and the Soja B or a Party B, basically because of their belief, because of their religion, because of their tribe, because they are married or because they are not married. They are just subjected to uniform standards. I'm not going to mention them or give a particular location. Not too long ago, I got a call from some of my own children who are, so to say, who are serving in the army, and said they were not even told they were going to be deployed to the battlefield. Just in the evening, at about 5 or 6 in the evening, that their commander just called and said, look, we are moving to these so places and other. In between, there are private soldiers, there are colonels, there are majors and other. None of them were ever told. They just released a name close to dawn and say, look, you are going to be deployed to the battlefield and other. I think that is the way we should do. Because when children of soldiers, when wives of soldiers, when relations of soldiers begin to make noise about this, it causes a very, very huge distraction to the war efforts. And when you decide the soldiers who is being deployed to the battlefield, you in the process you might leak information to the to the enemy, that is the Boko Haram, as regards the kind of weapon the soldiers are carrying, the kind of places they are being deployed, and the time they might be leaving some of these places, which I say, or which I believe is not too useful or too good for the war effort. It's going to be, it should be a collective sacrifice on the part of all of us, as a nation, as a people, as Muslims, as Christians, as even unbelievers who are confronted with the scourge of this Boko Haram insurgency.
You know, some are of the opinion that possibly this Adeboye Obasanjo's case has shown or proven that leaders are also involved in the fight against the Boko Haram, possibly help to expose that the lie that ordinary Nigerians are just being sent to die at the hands of the terrorists. Would you say that a lieutenant colonel leading a platoon prove otherwise from all the news we've been hearing recently?
No, if you are familiar with the way and manner the military operates and all that, you find out it is the majors and the colonels who actually lead the battle. It is not right once you have attained the level of a brigadier general. What you do is that you are in the situation room where you are planning the war, where you are planning the war efforts and all that. It's basically the colonels, the majors and all that. So there is nothing unusual in getting Adeboye Obasanjo, with given the ranking which he is today, that is a colonel, to be leading a contingent in the battle. In fact, I mean, there is no way you will be able to rise. I'm sorry, I hope I am wrong, that you can transit from the level of a colonel to that of a brigadier and then a general. If you have not actively participated in the battlefield and then distinguish yourself in the process, that is where they win the medal. And some of these colors and badges that you find all these generals wear on their chest. To buttress what you have said and all that, it just tells you that the rich also cry. I mean, because like I said, all of us are in this all together. But let us be very, very careful. It is not all the generals who have their children in the army. Even though a large number of them do have their children either serving in the army or serving the police or serving in the navy and so on. There are some generals who are too afraid of their past, who have not allowed their children to venture into joining the army, either because of all the atrocities they have committed in terms of people they have executed, whom they have accused of plotting against them, and whom they suspect might likely take it on their children. So they don't allow them. So it is very, very commendable and tremendous, and it portrays a lot of courage on the part of the General Commander. Some of these other past army officers, even privates, who have allowed themselves to serve in the Nigerian Army. So the bottom line is that if you are a major or a colonel in the army, there is no way in at one time or the other, especially if your country is confronted with the war such as we have in our, that you won't have at one time or the other to really go into the battlefield and distinguish yourself, especially if you want to advance to the top echelon of the profession.
You know, stories that made headlines, you know, in precedent, just recently, I think yesterday or so, says that Obasanjo's son is eager to return to war front, you know, alongside several other soldiers who were injured. Maybe the courage, the patriotism that we thought was not in the Nigerian army still is there. What are your thoughts along that line?
No. There are a lot of distinguished men and women in the Nigerian army who are not afraid of Boko Haram, who are very, very patriotic, who are ready to lay down their lives. I will give you an anecdote or a story which... and I'm fond of doing so, I'm sorry to say. I was in the public bus between Palm Grove and Obalende, and I happened to have traveled with a young Nigerian girl who had been deployed to the battlefield in Borno State. She served in there for a few months, and then she even had scars, gunshot scars on her leg and on her hand to show for it. She told me of sometimes how they would be in the trenches for hours, for days, fighting. And when I asked this young girl, will you be ready to go back to... She said, look, if I'm deployed tomorrow, why did I enlist in the Nigerian army? Here is a young lady who is not even married, who is showing this kind of patriotism. I also have some of my younger people who are in the rank of colonels, lieutenant colonel, who are my friends and other, who are itching to go to the battlefield. It's not every soldier, contrary to some of these things that you read in the newspaper, that are afraid to go to the battlefield. There are some of them who wanted to be soldiers from day one, and they are too proud to lay down their lives for their country. They are too proud to have scars on their body, gunshot scars on their body. They are too proud to distinguish themselves on the battlefield. So don't let us generalize. By the time we generalize, we will be mixing the grain with the chaff, and I don't think that is too good for us as a people. But in as much as you do have some patriotic one, also you also have some bad eggs in there. I have given you an anecdote in there when during the Nigerian Civil War, some soldiers will shoot themselves in the leg, and some will use knife to cut themselves in order not to be deployed to the battlefield. And now Obasanjo called all those successes and turned his third-man commando into an effective fighting machinery, which eventually turned the tide of the war in favor of the Nigerian men. Just as there are bad journalists, so there are also very, very good and patriotic ones in there. So I should still think that the bulk of the men and women in the Nigerian army, the bulk of the men and women in the police force, the bulk of the men and women in the Director of Military Intelligence, the bulk of the men in the DSS, that is Directorate of Security Services, and other, are patriotic people. If they have effective leadership, if they knew that when they lay their lives and all that, their country will not forget them, they will cater for their families and all that, I am sure they'll be too eager to discharge their responsibility to their country and to their people.
You know, the question on the hearts of men in Nigeria still remain that how do we translate this patriotism into real victory on the battlefield, and how on earth is it that some people, some fugitives, some civilians, because when you watch most of the clips, you see that Boko Haram people, some of them even wear sleepers, just armed with one gun or the other. How on earth are we held bound by this group of small people? Those are the questions we'll be finding answers to when we get back after this break. You're watching Core Digest, exclusive to Core TV News. Stay with us.
Core TV News, expanding your view.
Glad to have you join us on another edition of The Political Arena, the most detailed and incisive political show.
If you are a sitting governor and the opposition is able to stomach structure against you, that means you are wicked to the people.
Until the end of our time, I'm the legitimate authority to govern this country.
Give me 20 minutes to move or they will shoot me.
He has no chance for survival. If he likes himself, this is the best time to get out before he perishes.
The PDP as a ruling party has failed.
So anybody who thinks that government will fold his hands and allow miscreants to take over the streets of our own state and cause havoc is deceiving himself.
The good, bad, ugly, and beautiful sides of the Nigerian political system. Join me every Sunday at 9:15 p.m. on Core TV News.
Thanks for staying with us in Saturday edition of Core Digest. I'm here with Barrister Tunde Kolawole, a legal practitioner as well as a public affairs analyst. Thank you for staying the course.
It's a pleasure, sir.
On the show this Saturday. Now, let's move ahead from identifying the problem to getting some solutions. Some have questioned what has been that secret tactics of Boko Haram. Given the huge human resources we have in the Nigerian army, given the the financial resources available to Nigeria as a nation, how on earth can some little number of people hold us spellbound in the northern eastern region?
Yeah, that is the question that has always agitated the mind of all Nigerian patriots, all Nigerian people, that a ragtag army will take on an army that is supposed to be the strongest, the most formidable in Black Africa, and then begin to tear it into pieces, capturing territories and declaring Islamic caliphate. The answer is very, very simple, Nifemi. First and foremost, I want to disappear. I mean, I want to let the Nigerian people know that the Boko Haram people didn't just start overnight. This war didn't just start when Mohammed Yusuf, their leader, was supposedly killed when they started their campaign. I have a very, very strong suspicion and taking my antecedent from history that this war, that certain elements in that part of the world have been planning for the past 30 years or thereabout. Why do I say this? When you look at the DSA, Director of Security Service, they have always have a unit, an intelligence unit in that place that is charged with the responsibility of tracking down the activities of all these Islamic fundamentalists, especially in the northern part of the country. I am also aware that the police also have it, and then the army also have it. And there have been series of reports, also from the international community, that the Islamic fundamentalists in the Maghreb were waxing stronger and were planning an insurgency in such a massive scale that is likely to destabilize the whole of the West African and then sub-Saharan region. So that is to say, it is not just the locally here that the American people, the British people have been talking about it for long. The only problem we had is as a nation, we are always too reticent. We are always not proactive. We always take things for granted, and then we just say when we go to church, when we go to mosque, we can always pray and wish this thing away. If we had been proactive, we have been allowed to our responsibility as a people, as a nation, and if we had keep the security people to really do what is necessary at the right time and the right place and another, we probably would not have found ourselves in this quagmire that we have found ourselves. I'll give you an example. Take, for example, you remember this the Usman Danfodio jihad. After that, we were able to weather that. We didn't even weather it. It was the colonial master who stopped the advances of the Islamic Usman Danfodio jihadist army when they were doing those campaigns. They had overrun the whole of the north, and they already had a foothold. They have sacked the Loni and they already destroyed Oyo Ile. And the influx of it, you see, the massive population that we have in Ibadan today actually had its origin in the influx of people that are coming from Ilorin, from Oyo Ile, and some of these other places, and some part of Ekiti, that the Usman Danfodio jihad army had actually displayed. They all went and settled in Ibadan, and then it was from there that the Yoruba army were regrouping to really launch a counter-attack on this. And then when we transited from that, when we overcame that, you remember at independence, there was also a lot of crisis, whether we were to adopt either the Sharia as operating law throughout the country, or have the criminal code that the British colonial master bequeathed to us. It became a heated debate in such a manner that elder statesmen and then the colonial master had to intervene and say, look, let the northern part of the country adopt the penal code, which was borrowed from India and Pakistan, which is an abridgment of the Sharia criminal code that operates in those places. And then they said, look, let the South, that is secular, use the criminal code as an operator. If not, the crisis, this kind of Islamic, this kind of war, is a religious war, would have broken out at independence if that landmine, this legal landmine, had not been cleverly maneuvered by elder statesmen, Awolowo, Tafawa Balewa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and then all sorts of manners, and then the colonial master. And then when we also overcame that, you will also recollect we had the Matasini riots, all sorts of riots in Jos and some of these other places. It was General Muhammadu Buhari who brutally put down the Matasini riots that would have been the harbinger of this kind of Islamic fundamentalist war that we are waging there. And then at a different period in time too, you had certain head of states like General Muhammadu Babangida, Buhari, and the rest of them trying to smuggle Nigeria into the Organization of Islamic countries. It was the whoos and cries from the southern part of the country that this is an attempt to really Islamize the country. It's an attempt to Islamize the country. That is why these people want to smuggle us into this Organization of Islamic country, the so-called OIC. If not, Nigeria would have been very, very active. If not, the whoos and cries, the resistance from the southern part of the country before now. That is to say, that is also some attempt to really Islamize that. And then we transited from there. Ahmed Yerima also came with his so-called Sharianization of Zamfara State, which virtually all the northern parts of all the states in the north quickly rushed bills to their different house assembly and said they also want to make the Sharia the operating laws in that part of the country. There is not a single other state, maybe with the exception of maybe Plateau and Benue, and I think Kwara, that said no. We want to retain the secular law that we use, or the criminal code that we use in that place. If generational compassion has also not carefully navigated that Sharianization program started by Ahmed Yerima and other, the possibilities are that this country would have been enveloped in a religious war ever before now. And of course, look at a place like Kano. I'm not surprised that the Boko Haram Islamic insurgency are very, very active in Kano. In fact, when Mamene Kwankwanso came back to power for the second time, when he was giving his inaugural speech, one of the things he said was that he said Kano was going to be operating the Sharia, and that we were going to make Sharia the operating principle. Immediately he did that. Even ever before them, he strengthened the Ishba, which is the police, to really enforce the Sharia code. You also recollect times without number, on one occasion, one Igbo man, Akaluka, I think it was also in Kano, his wife was accused of, was alleged to have used a page of the Holy Quran to wipe the buttocks of their daughter who had defecated. And they got the police to arrest the man, and he was put in police custody. And certain element went to that police station, abducted him, decapitated his head in broad daylight, put it on a spike, and carried it around the whole of Kano. The NT and some other media houses recorded that gruesome murder and that macabre dance that took place in Kano. Up to today, nobody has been brought to book, nobody has been penalized for it. And lo and behold, very, very surprisingly, all the emirs in the north, all the political leaders in the north, all the communities in the north, none of them spoke against that barbaric killing of Akaluka. If the southern part of the country, or if the Igbo community had responded in like manner, you and I would know that at least the tendencies are, the possibilities are, that war would have broken out. And of course, with times without number, Igbos and Yorubas have been attacked in Sokoto State for not being Muslim enough at different times. You also recollect that one Yoruba woman who was teaching in one of these, I can't remember the particular thing. Certain children were said to be cheating in an exam, and then she tried to stop them from cheating. What do? They branded her an apostasy, and then within the school premises, they chased her. She ran into the principal's office. Rather than give protection to her and calling the police, the principal of the school pushed her out, and then the children she was supposed to be teaching was supposed to stop from cheating an exam, killed her, and then nobody of significance in other part of the country saw anything wrong with that. Wait, Nifemi, let's trace the history and antecedents of this thing. And then later, you remember Mohammed Shakshaki. I think he's based in Syria. Not long ago, he said he was trying to do to organize some demonstration in support of the Palestinians who were being brutally attacked by the Israelis. In the process, I think 2 of his children, sons, brilliant children who were schooling in China, were killed, and some others some other people were injured. Mohammed Shakshaki has been preaching for the Islamization of Nigeria for more than 30 years. In fact, different times in the history of this country, virtually all the regimes in this country have at one time or the other had to detain him in different prisons and police stations. I happen to have shared a prison with him when at one time again the military also detained me. We were together in a Kirikiri maximum security prison for a very, very long time. Mohammed Shakshaki and Co have never hidden the agenda to really Islamize this country. And then the Ahmed Yerima and all the rest of them took from there. And then the man who started the Boko Haram thing was also under the apprenticeship of one Islamic scholar. I think was it Kano or Kaduna. He thought that man was not radical enough. He broke away from him, went and started his own preachings and all these programs in Borno State. And nobody saw anything with that. You also have a segment of the Zala movement who are based in Jos. And that is why Jos has never been peaceful since they settled in there. Ditto for some of these other people. And then when the Mohammed Yusuf settled in Maiduguri, he had at his beck and call all the powers that be. People like the former governor of Sheriff, Momosa, what do they call him, Sheriff and other, were his patrons. I have given you times that number examples here, how he made a member of the Boko Haram, Sheriff, made a member of the Boko Haram the commissioner for finance, and also won an advisor for religious affairs and other. If there was no love lost, or if there were no intermingling, if there were no sympathy for the Boko Haram cause and other, you begin to ask yourself, how would Sheriff have made a member of Boko Haram, put him in such a strategic position where they would be available, where they would have opportunity to really fund their activities and other. And of course, I've also given you an example in this place of how the boy who bombed the Mandala prison was found in the Borno State Governor's lodge in Abuja. And the man who bombed the Emma Plaza, this was not the first time he was going to be carried out in a various activity. He had at different times or the other been arrested by different security opportunities. We were told, so to say, his parents would go and lobby the authorities and then they would leave him. They would release him until he carried out this lastly activity and then took off to a place.
I know
like
that you can go on
so
and
what
on.
I'm saying is
Such examples.
This Islamic insurgency, this one has been on ground for so many years. So for anybody to think that we can easily defeat or crush it overnight, we are deceiving ourselves. The second one, analogy or the example, the account I will give you is this: when you look at the issue of insurgency all over the world, it has always been very, very difficult to quell. Let's go to Afghanistan. Look at the American army with all the sophistication, with all the intelligence, with all the resources. They have all their satellites in space that can take pictures, graphic pictures of what is happening on the ground. Have they been able to subdue the ragtag Islamic insurgency army in Afghanistan? The answer is no. The reason is very, very simple. You see, guerrilla warfare such as the Boko Haram is waging, and then the conventional war, which the normal war, which the ordinary soldiers are exposed to, are totally different entirely. A guerrilla warfare is like a hunting expedition. It's a process of laying ambush for an enemy who is not you cannot really identify in terms of his color, in terms of his uniform, in terms of his language, or in terms of where he's coming from. And here you have a conventional army who is just standing by, waiting. And somebody is hunting me. It's man hunting me. It's all about ambushes, surprises, and then intelligence information. For a conventional army to transit to be able to understand the modus operandi of that kind of an army, it takes a lot of opportunity, study, a lot of time, a lot of resources, and a lot of understanding from the local population. In fact, when you look around the world and other, it's most conventional armies have never defeated a guerrilla army. The only exception, please let me anchor it. The only exception was in Chechnya when Vladimir Putin used a sledgehammer to crush the Chechnya Islamic fundamentalist people, rolling out mortars and killing people indiscriminately. And of course, I think we also had an example of Indonesia. They waged their own war against their Islamic fundamentalists for almost 30 years before they were able to crush them lifetime. What I'm trying to draw out of this is not a tea party. Nigeria should not expect a quick fix thing. It's never likely going to happen. I suspect that this war is likely to be long drawn. I suspect that if we are going to win this war, we are not going to depend on the Nigerian army alone. The local community will have to be very, very active in the crushing of the Boko Haram.
You established earlier that there are quite a number of patriotic Nigerians and soldiers in the Nigerian army. Some have questioned if this really is an army fight, if there are other viable alternatives, because you also made reference to terrorism in other parts of the country, how conventional army has not been able to deal with the problems. In this peculiar challenge that we have in northeast Nigeria, of course, we already talked about Colonel Adebayo Obasanjo, who says that he is eager to return to the war front. Is he an army contention, or are there other viable alternatives?
No, there are a lot of viable alternatives. Whether we would have the courage to really do the right thing, the political will to do the right thing, is a different thing entirely.
What are these right things?
First and foremost, like I say, you see, when you look at the guerrilla army, and the Boko Haram is a guerrilla army, they depend very, very much on the environment for the activities, for sustenance, and for renewal, and to be able to carry out the kind of dastardly activities that they can. Look at what is happening of recent now. You find that the Boko Haram people are abducting men and women. Why are they abducting them? They want to forcefully conscript them or enlist them into their own army. That tells you that they really require the local environment to be able to operate. Secondly, you see, a guerrilla army, if you devoid them, if you deny them for a conducive environment within to operate, it's like you have picked a fish out of water. And you and I do know there is no way a fish can survive out of water. Sooner than later, very shortly, it's going to die. So the first thing is for us to really be able to really conscript, so to say, the people within the environment with the Boko Haram people are operating into this war efforts. And their conscription is going to be on several levels. First is to really win them away from the Boko Haram. Make sure that we create a web between them and the Boko Haram, so that their sympathy will not lie with the Boko Haram insurgency, but will lie with the Nigerian army and with the Nigerian people. The second level is for us to begin to arm them. You have to arm the local population to be able to fight these Boko Haram people. But harming them to fight the also has its own difficulties. Exactly. Armed proliferation is one of it. Then when the war is over, how do you mop up this weapon? How are you even sure that majority of the people that you have in those places are not even sympathizers of the Boko Haram? Because when you look at the campaigns of the Boko Haram, you find out whether in Chibok, whether in the Dambo and other, most of the places that they have been attacking are the Christian communities. What that tells me is that there may be some symmetry or some sympathy or some understanding or some level of cooperation, or somebody somewhere is paying for security, is paying some ransom not to be attacked. So if these people, if the majority of the people, the bulk of the people in those places are sympathetic to the Boko Haram cause, by the time you begin to harm them and other, the chances are that they will turn that weapon against the Nigerian soldiers and then against the Nigerian people. Furthermore, intelligence. If you are able to get intelligence from the local population and other, almost 70% of the war efforts is going to be achieved, because guerrilla army, like I said, thrives a lot on then information. If the Nigerian soldiers have information as regards where these people are based, how they carry out the operation, how they move, where their armories are. Look at it, they now have APC, they have rocket propelled, they have anti-aircraft missiles and all that. All those things are not easily moved. The last attack they said they came in cover of 17 vehicles. They would have passed through some local communities from one distance to the other. And certain people in certain places would have seen them when they were moving towards certain direction. If the local communities are not sympathetic to them, they probably would have made a call, they probably would have raised alarm, they probably would have alerted the Nigerians, so that we have seen some strange movement of the Boko Haram people in this direction. And of course, the Nigerian soldier would have been prepared. But if the sympathy of the local community for the Boko Haram, you and I do know that they are not going to be volunteering information that is going to assist.
Let's quickly touch on
the
this
Nigerian army
as we begin to round up. You recall that Lieutenant Colonel Adeboye Obasanjo was shot in Baza, a suburb of Michika local government in Adamawa State. Of course, by-elections are forthcoming in this particular state, I believe in October. Some have also clamored for a full-scale emergency rule where the Nigerian army and the military will be in total control of these affected states. How do you justify this call, and what do you foresee in a by-election amidst all these troubles?
Well, I have a feeling, I'm one of those who say, look, whether there is war going on in those places or no war, you must conduct an election. This is the art of democracy. Election is the art of democracy. For you to say because there are civil disturbance, because there are wars, then you are going to put the election in abeyance, I don't think it helps the growth of our democracy at all. I will again take us back to Afghanistan and to Pakistan. Even more virulent wars are being fought in all these places. But not too long ago, they conducted a presidential election, local community, senatorial election, and all sorts of elections in places like Afghanistan, which the international community have described as being free and fair. So if it could be done in a country like Afghanistan that has been waging a war against insurgency for more than 30 years and all that, I don't think why it should not be done in this part of the country as well. I also believe in the Nigerian security. I believe in the Nigerian army. I have a feeling that when the elections is coming, they should be able to protect lives and property in some of these places. Yes, the Boko Haram people who want to use the opportunity of the election to stage spectacular attacks and events because of the publicity, because of the propaganda rewards that is likely to give to them. That we should not chicken out, we should not give in to blackmail, because by the time you begin to play the game, the way and manner the Boko Haram people want you to play it, then they will begin to dictate the tempo of things. And that does not augur well for the war effort. It does not augur well for the psyche of the Nigerian people. It also gives them the kind of moral and psychological advantage that they are now the ones that are dictating the pace of things. And I don't think we should consider to the Boko Haram insurgency army at all. And when you also look at it, it's just about 3 states. The election in those places can even be staggered. It could be, we could conduct election in the safer places first, and then a week or two when we know we have enough security on ground. In some of these states, it can be Adamawa today, Borno tomorrow, and some of these other places today. So the election can be staggered in such a manner that we will not have any serious security breaches or challenges in some of these places.
Thank you very much for the time to join us today. Tunde Kolawole is a legal practitioner and a veteran public affairs analyst. Good to have you join us again.
It's a pleasure, sir. Thanks for having me.
Well, it looks as if the morale is bouncing back in the Nigerian army with the recovery, of course, ongoing recovery of Obasanjo's son, Lieutenant Colonel Adebayo Obasanjo, who actually says he is eager to return to the war front. Of course, messages from the Nigerian military is saying that these soldiers who have been injured after recovery, of course, while recuperating, are eager to get back and fight insurgency in faraway northeast Nigeria. They all need our support, and of course, you and I are partners in progress as we begin to reclaim the sovereignty of the Nigerian nation. It's a wrap on Cold Digest this Saturday. Join us again tomorrow. Cold Digest comes up 12 p.m. on Sundays. Just stick around for the top of the hour news. Don't go away.
Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on Digit 360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down, explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.